Right now, big wins for federal workers in court. Could they get their jobs back? Plus, a major GDOT project you're going to need to know about this weekend, and mortgage rates are falling. Demand is rising. Is it time to buy? This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. There's something big that's going to be happening this weekend. We're talking about the weather. Yeah, it could have a big impact on your plans, so let's get to it. We have an 11Alive weather impact alert for you this weekend where thunderstorms will be rolling through the area. Some of these thunderstorms could be on the strong to severe side, folks. The timing that we're talking about right now is Saturday night through Sunday morning, the wee hours on Sunday morning. We're talking about thunderstorms that could pack some very heavy rain. There could be some very damaging winds associated with it. Tornadoes are certainly possible as well, and you're going to need to have a way to get the alerts. The easiest way to do that is get it right to your phone. You can download our 11Alive app and you'll get those alerts, especially if you go to sleep. This is an overnight system, which could be very, very dangerous. Let's take a look at it now. Our forecast track model shows this is Saturday morning. It shows clouds building back into our area. There could be an isolated shower or two ahead of this system. You see by noon on Saturday, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds. Much of the day should remain dry, but temperatures will be in the upper 70s. Here comes that line. By 9 o'clock, entering into our far northwestern counties into the state, and then making its way toward the metro area by 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You can see that heavy rain associated with it. There will be some dangerous winds right along this line as it begins to push through. Should be east of us by the time we get to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So that by the time you're waking up on Sunday morning, which I think a lot of you will be already awake from the rumbles of thunder, if you're getting up at 8, 9 o'clock, a lot of that will be out of the way over toward the east of us. You can see some gradual clearing taking place on Sunday. At that particular time, maybe for some of us, we'll have to go out and assess some of that damage around. But again, Saturday night going into Sunday mornings when we're expecting these storms to be around. And we want to make sure that you're safe out there, especially on the roadways as the storm begins to push through. Plus, there's going to be some big happenings on I-20 if you're going to be traveling I-20 East, some big changes that you need to know about. Here to talk about that is friend of the show, Natalie Dale from GDOT. Hey, Natalie, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Now, what would you want drivers to know, especially when we talk about severe weather coming through? What do they need to know about the severe weather on the roads?
Well, we have crews out every week, but especially today doing those drain clearing checks. And that's very important when we get a system with high winds and precipitation, because it can take something very, very innocent to cover an entire drain and create a flooding situation. So your average real estate sign, your hubcap. This is why it's so important not to litter on the interstates for many reasons, but this is one of them, is that litter, when you get the winds and you get the rain, can quickly lead to a flooding situation. So if you're out and about, just be aware we've got crews clearing drains today. Give them some time and some space. Travel carefully around our crews. And then if you happen to be out and about during the storm system, which since it's coming in at the night, we certainly hope you are not, that you're safe at home, then just make sure that you are weather aware and that you know that there is the potential for some of those flooding areas.
Yeah, a word we like to use often around here when we know storms like this are coming in, weather aware. Typically when we talk to you, it's really about snow and you guys prepping the roads. Is there any kind of prep work you do to the roads other than clearing out those drains for storms like this?
You know, that's it, and we're lucky, we're happy for it. And you know, it's nice to know that it's 70 something degrees today and we won't have to brine anytime soon. But Georgia, we get all 4 seasons. So if we're not talking winter, we can be talking rain, tornadoes, hurricanes. So we're lucky that we see all that Mother Nature brings us, but we do get we sort of run the gamut on the severe weather that she brings us. So clearing drains, but our crews stay on call during these storm situations in case we have those trees down. That's very important that you're not out and about traveling. If we do have a lot of trees down, they can get wrapped in those power lines and create very deadly situations for motorists. So just sit tight this weekend. Wait till everyone gives you the all clear for the weather passing and that road conditions are safe.
Yeah, good points there. All right, so let's shift a little bit here to I-20 East. You got some things happening there. Want to tell us about it?
Well, I-20 East, the I-20 at 285 East Side interchange is, for anyone that travels this corridor, they know it is very involved in construction. The West Side interchange is coming soon in the next coming years. So these interchanges normally rank very high nationally on those freight bottlenecks, safety issues. So we've been busy working on these interchanges, getting these really interchange reconstruction projects off the ground. East Side is far along. So we have a big shift coming this week. Part of this project is rebuilding the bridge over Snapfinger Creek. So if you're traveling I-285 eastbound, I-20 eastbound at the I-20, I-285 interchange, there's going to be a traffic shift. That means that after Wesley Chapel Road, before Miller Road, the road is going to shift to the inside. That's part of that bridge reconstruction. Now, if you're used to traveling this, or you're just not paying attention, those shifts in construction zones can take you by surprise if you're not aware. That's why it is so important in these ever-changing construction zones that you keep your speed down, that you stay aware, because we have things like lane shifts that may take you out of your normal routine travel. So this lane shift will be in place until the end of the year, but it begins tonight at 9 p.m.
Wow, and it's going to stick around that long. It's going to stay till the end of the year until they get that bridge up.
It's going to stay till the end of the year. The project will wrap up fall of 2026. So still a lot of work going on out there, big flyovers, collector distributor lanes, new bridges. So when we have to be disruptive in these big projects, we try to get as much done as we possibly can, so we don't have to come back in the near future. So a lot of work going on out there, but it's going to be great for mobility and safety once we're out of the road.
All right, before I let you go, quick hack around it. You can give me a better way around this one if I can avoid it?
Well, it's going to be our greatest hack. My favorite hack is always use your favorite wayfinding app. We certainly have the Georgia 511 app. You have Waze, you have Google Maps, because there can be a variety of detour routes around. But if there is a crash, if there is a traffic backup, that can change very quickly what your best and safest route is. Okay. So we always just like to promote know before you go, before you leave your driveway, before you leave your parking spot, put in your next destination, get acquainted with it. Know that it could change depending on Atlanta traffic, depending on if there's a wreck or not. But having that information at your fingertips is really vital to have a low stress, safe commute through this area. So use the tools you have at your fingertips to stay safe, give you the best route. As we know it with Atlanta traffic, it can change from day to day. Oh, yeah. So make sure that you're using those to sort of figure out what your daily best route is around this.
All right, friend of the show, Natalie Dale, always appreciate your insight, and thanks for joining us.
Always good to talk to you.
All right, take care. All right, Atlanta's mayor is outlining his vision for public transportation along the Beltline. Mayor Andre Dickens spoke in front of the MARTA board for the first time yesterday, and he said rather than extend the Atlanta streetcar to the East Side Trail, it makes more sense to have the streetcar access at the South Side portion of the Beltline.
Certain parts of it are already extremely dense with a lot of activity, a lot of walking, a lot of commercial nodes, a lot of restaurants, a lot of this. There's a lot of disruption that will happen if you try to do it all at once.
Okay, also during the meeting, we learned that renovations could pick up at the 5 Points MARTA station within the next few weeks. Another scary situation at an airport. Just after landing, a fire forced emergency evacuation. Passengers had to climb on the wing of the plane. American Airlines says the engine caught fire while taxiing to the gate. The plane had been diverted to Denver. Video shows passengers crowding on the plane's wing as that thick black smoke filled the air. 178 people were on board the flight from Colorado Springs to Houston. All were evacuated. No injuries were reported. Whew, this is becoming more and more frequent. Let's hope it stops. We got to fly, right? Don't go anywhere. We got much more show for you coming up after the break. All right, welcome back to the show. Two big wins in court for hundreds of thousands of fired government workers, and a key Senate Democrat changes his mind about a potential government shutdown. Always a lot going on in D.C. And so to join us, to break it all down for us, is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who has been covering politics for years now. And Alice, we've been talking about this back and forth going on, and now we see a Maryland judge has ordered that thousands of federal workers should be reinstated following these cuts by the Trump administration. Give us the very latest on this.
Yeah, so this is really one of the most sweeping orders that we've seen so far against the Trump administration. And essentially, a federal judge from Maryland has ordered thousands of fired federal workers across 21 agencies and departments to be temporarily reinstated. And he gave a deadline of March 17 at 1 p.m. for these employees to be reinstated. It is temporary while this litigation continues to play out. And we certainly expect the Trump administration to continue to appeal. But this Maryland Maryland judge found that the mass firings were unlawful and not based on actual individualized employee assessments, which the Trump administration has been saying that people are being fired for performance issues. And this judge is saying that there's not evidence to show that that's the case. He wrote that when firing someone for unsatisfactory performance, quote, the employer must honestly be dissatisfied with the probationer's conduct or performance after giving him a fair trial on the job. And he said that there just, wasn't kind of the paper trail to show that that had happened, and there wasn't any advanced warning for these firings, and that those two things together made this an unlawful firing.
Is there any,
and it's the latest instance, really, of the courts checking the Trump administration that we've seen. Gotcha.
Is there any insight on how long the temporary stay will last? Like, is there any indication of that at all?
This is something, again, it starts on the 17th, and I think it's a question of how quickly the Trump administration appeals to determine how long that would stay in place.
Gotcha. All right. Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer now says he's going to support a funding bill that will prevent the government shutdown. Why did he change his mind?
Yeah, when we spoke about this just yesterday, he had said that there were not going to be the votes in order to pass this bill. It requires 8 Senate Democrats to get on board in order to get this approved and prevent a government shutdown that right now is set for midnight tonight. And over the course of 24 hours, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer seems to apparently had a change of heart. And he now says he will support this House Republican 6-month funding bill to prevent the government from shutting down, because he says the alternative is worse. And he really expanded on his reasoning. He said that his fear is that if the government shuts down, then the Trump administration would be in the position to say what is an essential service and what is not. That is part of what happens when a partial government shutdown happens. And that he believes they could then apply that reasoning to saying, we deemed that you were not an essential worker, you were not an essential service during the shutdown, and we believe that to be true when the shutdown lifts, and could then unilaterally fire more people after any shutdown would end without having the recourse of going to the courts because of strengthened executive powers during a shutdown. So that was his reasoning.
Wow.
Chesley.
Okay. Never a dull moment, Alice, and you always keep us updated, so we really appreciate your insight. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
All right.
You too.
Mortgage demand surged 11% last week as rates continue to fall. You might be wondering, is now the time to buy? Well, we've got real estate advisor Sarah Stroshine with us to talk more about it. Hello, Sarah.
Hey, how are you? Good morning.
Doing pretty good. All right, we want to get into this now. Talk to us about what you're seeing out there in the housing market right now. Are people looking to buy more now?
Yeah, well, just talking about interest rates, really peaked in October of 2023, which they were in the high 7s. And the beginning of January 2025, they were in the low 7s, and we're seeing them really improve. And some of the best rates we've seen all year, which are in the averaging in the mid 6s. So with rates dropping, buyers on the sideline ready to pop in, which really gives us a lot more market activity.
There you go. So what about sellers? Any advice for them as they start to see things shift a little bit here?
Yeah, really price and condition is so important in this market. It is not a market to push price. Most buyers want homes that are move-in ready with no deferred maintenance, and how you present and market your home really matters. In some cases, if the buyer or sellers aren't taking all the precautionary things on how to list their home, they should be prepared to offer buyer concessions, including closing costs or even rate buy-down assistance.
Yeah. Do you recommend waiting for rates to drop even lower for some buyers?
I'm sorry?
Would you recommend waiting for the rates to drop even lower for some buyers?
It's timing the market is always tricky. Mm-hmm. If a home fits your needs and your budget now, it's often better to just buy and refinance later.
Okay. Refinancing applications were up about 16% last week. So what's the big question for current home owners? Do I refinance now or do I wait? Any insight on that?
Yeah, if your current rate is over 7% and you're planning on being in your home for a long time, it might be a good time for you to refinance. It's best to talk to a mortgage lender to find out what the numbers look like for you, and then you can make an educated decision.
And so any thoughts on how long that may take?
How long refinancing takes?
Right. Well, or just waiting for it to go down even further. Or do you see it even going down even further?
We don't really have a crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
The key economic factors that, the decrease in inflation, the economy slowing down, and the threats of, kind of a recession, those
Gotcha.
all, impact interest rates. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. Sarah, always appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, take care now. Plenty more stories for you to come. This is The Take. You're watching 11 Live Plus. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. It's a busy week for Georgia politics, and as always, Zach Merchant with our 11 Live political team is here to help make sense of it all. Zach, our 11 Live Sunday political show, the Georgia vote, is coming up this Sunday. What should we be looking out for?
Well, you're right. Look, it is always a busy week in Georgia politics. I feel like we say it every week, but that is because it is true every week. And this Sunday at 11, right here on 11Alive. Plus, we will have another edition of the Georgia Vote. It's a packed show, headlined this week with a one-on-one interview with Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, who is somebody you may be hearing a lot more about in the coming months.
Why would we be hearing more about him?
Well, he wants to be Georgia's next governor. He is the first major Republican to announce a campaign for governor, and he is running to succeed Governor Brian Kemp, who, if you don't already know, he is term limited, which means after his term that he's in right now runs out in 2026, he cannot run again, and that means there's going to be an open governor's mansion to go after.
Can you share with us what he talked to you about?
Yeah, we had about a 20-30 minute long one-on-one conversation with Chris Carr, and what really stood out was his emphasis on what you might call kitchen table issues. He said jobs and safety, I'm spitballing here, but probably a dozen times throughout the duration of our conversation. It was a big emphasis of his. Not so much of an emphasis during our conversation, at least, were some of the more, some might call divisive social issues that were a key point of some of President Donald Trump's campaign messaging in 2024. To be clear, Chris Carr didn't steer away from it when we asked him. He said he is pro-life. He supports Georgia's heartbeat bill that bans most abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. He said he's also very supportive of Second Amendment, gun rights, but he really wanted to stay in that jobs and safety messaging. One other point, he really held up Governor Brian Kemp as a model politician in our state and seemed in some ways to be framing his still very young campaign as in some ways, maybe a little bit of a third term of Governor Brian Kemp's leadership of our state.
Wow. Yeah, 2026 seems like a long way away, but it feels like campaign season is already taking shape. Who else should we be watching out for?
A whole lot of people, because there is a lot to run for in 2026. Of course, as we mentioned, Governor Brian Kemp is term limited, so somebody new is going to be taking over the governor's mansion in 2026. There is also a United States Senate seat that will be competitive. Democratic U.S. Senator John Ossoff is up for re-election, and both of those factors combine to mean there are going to be a lot of people eyeing a run for something in 2026. And when you got to run for something coming up in 26, right now is when you start really putting those plans in motion. Here's some people you should be keeping an eye on. On the Republican side, folks like Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene have both said that they are considering a run. Burt Jones is looking at the governor's race. Marjorie Taylor Greene has expressed interest in either running for governor or for Senate, or of course she could still stay in the United States Congress as a U.S. representative. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, also a Republican, he has also been in this conversation, rumored to be thinking about a run. And on the Democrat side, Representative Lucy McBath, she announced an exploratory committee last week, which was a really big, really strong indication. She is, at the very least, thinking very hard about running for governor. Others rumored to be considering a campaign on the Democrat side include a really wide range of folks, everybody from Stacey Abrams to Jason Carter to former DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurmond, and plenty more. The long and the short of it is there are going to be a lot of people and some very competitive primaries in 2026.
Yeah, and I remember, Zach, you may be able to speak about this. We thought that former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms may be throwing her hat into the ring too.
Keisha Lance Bottoms, absolutely. And when we say there's a big list of folks, that really is the key of it. Just about every statewide major Democratic politician and Republican politician in our state you don't want to cast a big generalization here, but you can expect that they are at least thinking about it, and Keisha Lance Bottoms has said so much as well. It's going to be a very competitive season.
Yeah, that's a lot to keep track of, but you're covering it all. What else you got on the show this week?
Yeah, it's so much to keep track of, but that's really the privilege of living and working, and if you're a voter, voting in a swing state where our politics are complicated, but we get to break it all down. Very quickly here, we want to mention, we're talking a lot about campaign season, but we are still in the middle of the legislative session. We just crossed over crossover day, the critical midpoint of the session. There's still a lot of action left in the back half of the session, though. Some of the big bills that we are tracking right now and we will be talking about on this week's show on the Georgia Vote on Sunday include legislative efforts that are impacting gender identity issues, things like gender-affirming care, and transgender athletes' access to public school sports. We're also keeping an eye on the budget and, of course, Governor Brian Kemp's marquee priority this session, tort reform. They are all moving their way through the General Assembly, but none have yet been finalized and none have yet been signed into law. We'll be breaking all of that down on Sunday.
Okay, sounds great. Zach, we know you're all over it. Really appreciate your insight, my friend.
Appreciate it, Chesley.
All right, we'll have you back on the show pretty soon, I'm sure. All right, did you see it? Yeah, the first blood moon we've seen in 3 years happened early this morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning. It happened during the totality phase of the lunar eclipse right there. You see in this scene right here over Atlanta, if you happen to be awake in the middle of the night, we had a few clouds overhead, but they broke just in time for you to see a little bit of that blood moon. Hopefully nothing strange happened around you looking at that moon. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right, back with my final take. You're watching The Take. We're back right after this. As we mentioned earlier, 11Alive weather impact alert for this weekend. Saturday night going into early morning Sunday, we'll have some very strong to powerful storms move through our area. We're talking heavy rain, we're talking lightning, hail could be possible with this, also tornadoes. So you have to be weather aware, folks. Make sure you get the 11Alive app and download those settings on your phone for your weather alerts, folks. This will be happening overnight. So when we go to bed, we're going to need to know what's happening over our area. So we're weather aware about what's taking place. Likely not to arrive here until after about 9 or 10 o'clock, moving into our northwest counties first, and then moving through the metro area between, let me give it a time between midnight and about 2 a.m. is where we'll see the strongest parts of the storm. Should push to the east of us by the time we get to 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. So by the time you're waking up, if those storms don't wake you up on Sunday morning, it should be well east of us. In fact, we'll see some clearing taking place by Sunday mid-morning and into the afternoon. So again, be weather aware. Saturday night going into the wee hours of Sunday morning, some strong to severe thunderstorms moving through our forecast area. All right, before we go, my final take for the week. Now, I consider life hacks to be pretty cool, but this latest one from TikTok, I don't think you should try it. There's travelers out there that are participating in what's called the airport theory, which claims that they can make it through security and arrive at their gate in less than 15 minutes before the flight. 15 minutes before the flight now, and that would eliminate the time that you spend at the gate. I get that. 15 minutes? Some of those videos that have been successful in LA, New York City, and Texas. Haven't seen one in Atlanta. Yeah, and I wouldn't do it. Keep in mind, they call it the world's busiest airport for a reason. I like to start to see those TikTokers try to fool around with the plane train. You know what I mean? Yeah, I wouldn't do it, folks. 15 minutes? Don't do it, especially on a holiday here at the world's busiest airport. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. TikTok is something else. And some of y'all should stop TikToking. You understand what I'm saying? All right, thanks for joining us. We want you to have a great and safe weekend. Before we say goodbye to you, I want you to see your moment of Zen.